Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And Philip, my gosh, we have a great show lined up today. Going to be starting off today talking about getting our game plan together for retirement, because you know why.
Go Bucks, right? Go Bucks. That's right, man. Hey.
You're excited for the Buccaneers.
Historically, hey, they're going to play on their home field. Never been done before. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
You probably don't think so, but.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're talking to somebody who grew up in Kansas City and can't help but cheer on the Chiefs. So hopefully we can get through today's show without too much contention.
Yeah, you're too far away from me to, batter too bad. So.
That's right. Well, and when you think about the fun part of being a fan is, we might follow the season. We might know the teams who are going to be playing, but we don't really have to think a whole lot about the game until we're on the couch with our remote. And in my house, our Super Bowl tradition is nachos. We have nachos for dinner. It's a big deal for my kids every year. No matter who's playing, they get nachos for dinner. Yeah.
I'm impressed the kids are like that, because it's team related to me. If it's not a team I like, I don't care about it.
Yeah. Well, if they get to have nachos for dinner, they're showing up. Right. Exactly.
It's not who's playing, it's what they get to eat for dinner.
Yes. Yeah. And they get to stay up late. Yeah. All of it. They get soda. It's all great. But, that is, again, the fun part about being a fan. We get to go about our daily lives and then show up and then we plug in. But if coaches and players took that approach, think about that. You cannot imagine Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, no practice, no watching film, no playbooks, just showing up on game day and hoping things go okay. It's just not going to happen.
It doesn't happen. No, it's just not going to happen. You're right. That's just not the way. That's not the way professionals prepare. Right? They're getting paid to do better than that. So. I kind of see the question coming here, Jen, that there's people who don't really prepare for the biggest event in their life.
Right.
And that's retirement. And so, that's an area I think that it is a big concern. And I don't think people, a lot of times they don't give enough credence until it's right there upon them. Like you said, those athletes, they prepare, right? They're watching game film. They're running their routes and practicing. When people retire, they come in, if they're going to retire at full retirement age, maybe they come in at 65 before they're going to retire next year and say, oh, what do I do? Well, that process really and truly, we can make it work there, but to be in your prime, we need to start that process, 5 to 10 years before you're going to pull the trigger and retire.
Right. It's just one of those things that we need to be thinking about ahead of time, because it is laughable to think about any team or any athlete taking that approach to any game, let alone the Super Bowl. And yet it is kind of how a lot of us approach retirement. And it's not to say that we haven't done the saving, Philip. People have done that part because that's been automated. They've been building up their savings. But as far as actually developing a game plan and making sure that your savings is going to last, let's talk about that transition. What's the first step you should take to make sure that you are ready for retirement and you have that game plan in place?
I think that, to me, when we get to that point, Jen, I think of it as game changer, right? So when I say that, it's a different philosophy from work to retirement, not just in what you do and the actions and, hey, I'm not going to work anymore, but it's a different mindset. It's a different investment style. When we make that adjustment from working to retirement. And so the biggest thing I see is that people don't shift gears. They keep doing what they're doing before they retire, after they retire. And to me, that's one of the biggest problems and biggest concerns that I have for folks out there, is that they don't make that shift, and they're getting good accumulation advice, but the flip side of that is the distribution side of that coin is a totally different game. It takes different preparation, it takes different tools. Everything is different about that part of the game. And a lot of times you need to change coaches when you hit to that point. And unfortunately, people don't figure that out fast enough. And sometimes it can be too late. And that's what you don't want to see happen, Jen.
Right. And when you mention that it's time to switch coaches analogy, I think that is something that we want to make sure that we mention here as someone who helps people get ready for retirement and kind of acting as that coach. All the professional athletes out there, all the best ones, they still have a coach. They're really good at what they do, but they still need someone else to help critique them, help maybe see something that they can't see from where they are on the field, and the coach can see something else. And that's really what your role is. It's not that you're taking over our money and playing the game for us. It's helping coach people, helping them see some of those decisions that they need to be making and understand the impacts down the road, right?
Absolutely, Jen. And that's what we look at. We want to be folks' retirement coach, and retirement coach is not just coaching the money. I mean, that's a part of the process, but there's taxes, there's healthcare. I mean, there's inflation. There's what do I do with my time? What do I do with my family issues? I mean, we're there to coach them through that whole process, not just, hey, here's the money, that's all we deal with, and put blinders on. We're there as a resource to help coach them all the way through retirement, whether that's a long-term care issue, whether that's a child, we're having issues with a sibling or a child or somebody like that. We're here to be a bounce and to bounce things off of and to coach them through that process, because we've dealt with it. We've had experience in those areas before, not just, hey, your money's over here. That's all we focus on. We want to be the resource for everything when it comes to retirement. And folks, listen, if you're not getting that full coaching experience and you're 5 to 10 years out from retirement, it's time to change coaches, time to change teams. And that's what we do here at Statler Financial. We focus on those folks that are getting ready to retire, 5 to 10 years out, or who have already retired. We want to help coach you into and through retirement. Give us a call. Let us help you through that process today. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to get started coaching you through retirement.
That number one more time, 863-285-3815. Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. Talking today in light of the big game about the importance of having a game plan to make sure that your income will last as long as you need it to last. And as we talk a little bit about football here with the big game, Philip, 80% of retired NFL players are broke within 3 years of leaving the league. Talk about not having a game plan. And I know not all of them get paid at the same level as some of the stars that are out there, but even, that's just astounding to think that 80% of them are broke in that short amount of time. Talk a little bit about what happens here as far as, I guess, spending down their money too quickly. Is that the big issue?
Well, I think a lot of times the big issue is not focusing on the long game, right? They're focusing on the short game. What do I want to do now? Because let's face it, a lot of those athletes come from poorer families. And so they want to help everybody and their brother, number one, be financially successful. And really what they don't understand is they're just, they're hurting them more than they're helping them. Secondly, they have these big dollar signs. And so they go out and spend the money that, because they've never had it before, they go buy all the luxury items. And so then that creates that lifestyle that they keep running through, and they end up spending more money than they're making.
Gosh.
Instead of putting money away in those good financial years, because we know ultimately that season or that sports or that profession is going to end, and they're going to have to make changes. Mm-hmm. And so unfortunately they don't save. They go out and buy the big nice cars, the Rolexes, the fancy places, in multiple residences and those type of things. And so that starts the process. Instead of having somebody that they listen to, coach them through that process.
Right. And there's a player on the Chiefs who learned this lesson the hard way, that it is a good idea to work with a financial advisor to help you with this. I know maybe you don't know him very well, but Travis Kelce plays for the Chiefs, and he was on a podcast not too long ago talking about some of the crazy spending that he did when he signed his first contract. $3 million contract in his rookie year. He bought those self-lacing sneakers like Marty McFly wore in Back to the Future. I mean, really reasonable stuff here. And he bought a Rolex, and he just went big and crazy with his spending. And he ended up struggling paying rent when he had that size of a contract, but he was just going crazy with the spending. So he learned his lesson and said, look, you've got to find a financial advisor who can help you manage these things. And you can see why these young guys go crazy when they get this huge amount of money. But he's learned his lesson. I think he's going to be okay. He's signed another contract since then, and I think he's got somebody helping him manage it now. But getting that guidance, having someone help you manage this so you don't spend it down too quickly, is a really important part of putting together your retirement plan, because it's just preservation is what it's all about, and watching what's going out the door, right?
Oh yeah. And let's face it, the agents aren't really helpful, right?
Probably
they want
not.
you to keep playing. They're not the right coach to do that, unfortunately. And it's no different than, we've had some big lottery winners here lately, right? And it's the same thing. Statistically, how many of those lottery winners will be broke in 3 to 5 years? And they got 700 $1 billion or whatever that number was, a crazy number. And so that's the same thing. And so that's a place where, we need to plan for the future and not for what we want to do right now. I mean, obviously you need to reward yourself because you got this nice contract, but let's don't go over the top. Let's make sure that we're putting money away for that rainy day when our seasons are over and we don't get to go back out to the football field or the baseball field, or we don't have a winning ticket, to draw from next. We've been given a lot today, so let's take care of it. And that's what we don't see. And that's where I think, hiring the right financial professional to help you through that process, who's not going to necessarily be your best friend, but be your coach, to really stand up and say, look, that's not what you should be doing. We need to focus over here. We need to focus over there, and really looking out for you, not for everybody else in the world who wants to take advantage of you. And so I think that's a big deal. And that's really what we're here for at Statler Financial, is, again, to help coach people into and through retirement. And we like to start that as early as we can, right? So if we can start 10 years before you're going to retire, that's a huge advantage to people. In 5 years, hey, it's still an advantage, not as good as a 10-year advantage. And I have folks that come see me the day after they retire. And I would rather them do that than try to do it on their own, or go find somebody that doesn't specialize in retirement income planning, because that would be a big mistake. So with that, give us a call, folks. We would love to help coach you into and through retirement. Again, if you're 10 years out from retirement, or you've already retired, we can still put together a game plan, help you through that process, and continue to coach you into and through the whole time of retirement. Give us a call, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Don't put it off. Hire the retirement coach that can get you through retirement. That number, one more time, is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. If you owe $26.5 trillion and you didn't have the money to pay it off, what would you need to do? Well, you need to make a lot more money, right? Well, now America's debt is more than $26.5 trillion, and right now taxes are at historically low levels. It doesn't take a genius to realize taxes will probably go up. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are low, or later when rates are much higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services know what to look for. Plan now. Philip can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 863-285-3815 to set up a visit with Philip Statler and Statler Financial Services. When taxes go up, will you be ready? 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Statler Financial Services may not give tax advice.
Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. The website is statlerfinancial.com. If you'd like to learn a little bit more, you can check that out. Lots of great resources available there, and you can even put yourself on Philip's schedule by going to the website statlerfinancial.com. So, Philip, I've got some info here. Financial experts say there are behavioral factors that could influence our financial decisions. So let me translate that real quick. Sometimes we act weird when it comes to our money. You put it another way, right? We're irrational. Sometimes we make decisions that we later regret. So we want to talk about how our behavior could have an impact on our money over time and what we can do to stop acting weird with our money, because we do this. Philip, how often do you see this? Do you see behavior or emotions get in the way of smart decision making?
I will say not as much as I used to, but this whole behavioral finance thing, it's a big deal. I mean, you can actually go to college and get a degree, I think, in
it's an area
finance.
of study. Yeah,
it is. So it's become a real deal, and there's a lot of good information. And it helps if individuals will look at it, it will help them understand themselves, number one, more better. And it helps advisors understand people and how they make decisions. But I do, it's, I will say that I used to see emotions get in the way a lot more before we made a change here at Statler Financial and really started looking at risk-adjusted portfolios and really looking at how much risk people have in their portfolios from that standpoint. So that's been a big adjustment, and we made that adjustment. Man, it's been a while now. So, but probably over 15 years ago.
Wow.
So, but I still see emotions kick in, right? So this last year, when we saw COVID hit, we saw people get emotional about their money. And when the market started to tank. And so that's one of those things with COVID, we had to talk some people off the ledge and help them and remind them that, hey, that's only part of your portfolio. You got the other part over here. So yeah, emotions definitely play a big role in finances.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about some of the way this plays out, because as you said, behavioral finance, it's an actual area of study now, and they've come up with some different behavioral traps that we could potentially fall into. Things like confirmation bias, for example. I know that's one of them. Talk a little bit about what that means and how do we see this play out?
So there's a list of kind of what we see as traps that people fall into. And like you said, the first one kind of is a confirmation bias. And that's a tendency of folks to really look for something that kind of supports their beliefs, right? They have a belief. And so confirmation bias is they're just finding anything that agrees with their position. And it's not only in finance, we see that in life in general, right? People always want to justify what they're doing. And so we see that a lot in that confirmation bias. The other thing that we see is availability bias. And that's a little bit different because it's more of a mental shortcut for those folks that, when you make a judgment about something, some event and how that may show up. So like hurricanes, right? So we have this assumption, especially here in Florida, when it's hurricane season, that because of the last few years, maybe we didn't get hit as bad or we did get hit really bad. So we think this year is going to be the same. So that really plays into that hey, because it's that time of year, because it's possible, then we start thinking that it's a given, it's going to happen. Overconfidence is a common behavioral challenge that we see out there. Many people believe that their personal odds of success are far greater than what actually will likely happen. We still see people out there that think that for some reason that they can earn 12-15% a year in the market. Well, statistically, that doesn't add up, right? That's just not the way it is. And overconfidence isn't helped by everybody on the golf course bragging about how well their one position did and not talking about the 12 positions that lost money. That's something that we see and have to battle all the time. Another one is illusion of control. It's kind of similar to overconfidence in that individuals often kind of overestimate their ability to influence external events. For some reason, they think that they've got a leg up and they can have some control when really they don't control anything. A lot of people, they think we control the markets, and we don't. I don't have a crystal ball here that says, here's what the market's going to do. I don't have a crystal ball that says, hey, when COVID hit, I should have known that the market was going to tank. Those are things that are, that you can't control. And then another one is a loss aversion. And it's a tendency for human beings to feel more pain from economic loss than they feel pleasure from economic gains. And that's a big one, Jim, because people don't really realize that until it happens to them, right? So,
right.
And we saw this a lot back in 2008. People thought that they were moderate investors. They thought they were moderately risk averse. And they thought that until 2008, when a moderate portfolio lost 25%. They thought a moderate portfolio was only going to lose 10 or 15%. And so that pain from that loss overcame that anticipated gain that they thought they would get. And so people are more protective, at least in this current situation, of protecting themselves from loss than they are gain. Now, unfortunately, they don't always do that with foresight. They do it with hindsight, and that's not a good thing. Jen, a lot of those reasons that we just talked about, that's the reason that I believe people need to understand the amount of risk they have in the portfolio. And so we developed the financial x-ray for that specific reason, so that people will know with certainty what their risk is, not just their risk number, but how much risk they have in their current portfolio. And so we developed this financial x-ray. Let me just offer that to folks today, that they can take advantage of a financial x-ray of their current portfolio. All they have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Or they can go to our website, statlerfinancial.com, and there's a link to our calendar right there. Easy to schedule a financial x-ray. Do it today. Don't let this year get away from you before it's too late. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside, talking about behavioral traps that we can all fall into. And going back to, Philip, you kind of went over a bunch of them here. Confirmation bias, that is that tendency we have to find evidence that supports what we already believe. And we've seen this with politics. We've seen this with a lot of things. Talk a little bit more, though, about how this could trip us up with financial decisions if we are only seeking essentially proof that we're right without ever looking at anything else.
Well, yeah, and that's a big deal. I mean, I think that one of the areas I see confirmation bias come into play is when people a lot of times will select an advisor. They think that the tools that advisor have will be enough to take care of their issue, instead of finding and talking to an advisor who has all the tools that may be necessary to make the plan. So I see people all the time that think, well, the stock market is the answer, and you have to use the stock market, and you have to be fully invested in the stock market. And that becomes, a confirmation bias because, the brokerage industry will agree with you and they'll show you that you're right. That's the way it works. But I have found that that's not true. There are tools that people need to use, especially as they head into retirement. You've got to use different tools. You cannot use the same tools you've used the 25 years before you retire, the next 25 years. If you want to have a successful retirement, you need to adjust what you're using. And so that's the big thing, I think, when it comes to that type of bias, that confirmation bias. We want to look for people that agree with us.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about how you help somebody get confidence with their plan, help them get accurate information, overcome things like this confirmation bias, and get a little bit more confident, but without falling into the trap of becoming overconfident. There's such a balance here. We don't want to overdo it to where we're overconfident and assuming that we'll be, much better off than we potentially could be.
Well, I think that just by having a plan, right? And that's the key, is having a game plan, a financial retirement income plan in place that's written that folks can see. Well, number one, that gives them confidence right there. The other part of that is we can't have some outrageous return numbers on that plan. And that's one thing that I feel like happens a lot of times in this industry is that, we'll get numbers that we think may be good, but I would rather err on the side of caution, right? I want to say, okay, I put together an income plan and here's the rates of return we're using. They're very, very, very conservative in that process, because I'd rather be conservative here and know that you're not going to run out of money with these numbers, as opposed to putting higher numbers on there so you can spend more money or take more money out with the issue that you could run out of money. And that's not good. So that, I think, is one of the things, is putting together a reasonable plan that is cautiously optimistic. Again, cautiously. So we're using very, very conservative assumptions moving forward. And so I think that gives confidence to the plan, because people can look at it and say, oh, that's more than reasonable. And so I think that really starts that process. So, Jen, that's why I think it's really important that people have a written financial income plan, a retirement income plan. Most of the people I sit down with, they don't have one. They look at me like deer in the headlights. They say, well, my broker said I'm taking money from over here. So when are you going to stop taking money from over there? I don't know. Folks, that's why we need to have a written retirement income plan. Give us a call. Let's start that process today with a risk analysis of your current situation. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Do it now. Don't procrastinate. 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
If you have a retirement plan and would like a second opinion, call Statler Financial Services today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Weddings, sports, vacations. Just about everything this year has been pushed back, shortened, or canceled. Now think about your retirement. You can't cancel it. You probably don't want to shorten it. But do you need to push it back? Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services can help make sure your retirement dreams are still on track. Philip and his team have been helping families just like yours retire no matter what the situation is for more than 20 years. They can help design a plan so that whenever you are ready to retire, your retirement is there waiting for you. Take control of your retirement today. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team. Do it now, 863-285-3815. Don't cancel, shorten, or push back your retirement dreams. Plan now so you can do all the things you've always wanted to do when you want to do them. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services today, talking about how our emotions and behavior can get in the way of smart decision-making with our retirement money. And as we talk through this today and looking at these behavioral traps and the emotional decisions, Philip, which do you think is harder, managing people's money or helping them manage their emotions about their money?
Managing their emotions is much more difficult, especially if you've not laid the foundation for expectations, right? But even when you do that, the ups and downs of the market can cause people anxiety, and so that gets their emotions rising high, and so they're concerned about their retirement, their income, those type of things. And so again, that's why I think it's important that you lay out the whole risk number thing at the beginning, because that will help, kind of ease that emotional issues about money. I mean, I've had several phone calls over the past year, whether it's COVID related or election related, any of those type of things that, well, what's that going to do to my money? I'm concerned. I'm fearful. You have to remind them that we've got this part over here that's subject to risk that we're watching on a daily, hourly basis. And we've got money over here where your income's coming from. That's protected. It's safe. You're not going to lose anything over on this side of the equation. And once you bring that all back together for them, then they, oh yeah, I remember our conversation. And then that you hear them breathe a sigh of relief, Jen.
I'm sure they do. And it is hard to get our emotions out of the way. We can't help but be somewhat emotional about our money. So that's why it's important to talk about behavioral finance and recognizing that we have behaviors and emotions that can get in the way here. I want to talk a little bit about the illusion of control as one of these behavioral traps we fall into. This is where we overestimate our ability to influence external events. Talk a little bit about how you've seen this play out with people who are trying to prepare for retirement.
Well, I think that I've seen that more from the folks that try to do it all themselves. Right, they feel like that they have a finger on it. They've got it under control. That they've got the answers, and typically what I see is they may have done well at certain points in time, especially in the growth mode, but they have issues when they switch gears and head into retirement because they still look at themselves as young, vibrant employees, and that's just not the case, right? They're not. They're getting up there to retirement age. Not that that's old, because I'm getting quite there. I think 60 is probably, the new 40. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
I think that they don't understand the difference between, accumulating and protecting. And so I see that a lot from people that do it themselves. That's probably the biggest thing from the illusion side.
Right. But on the other hand, what about the things that we know are outside of our control? How do we keep from feeling overwhelmed by all those outside factors that can influence our financial plans as well? It's one thing to assume you have more control, but if you feel completely out of control, that's not a good place to be either.
No, definitely not. Not trying to be out of control. But so how do we deal with that? And that may be a little easier, actually, Jen, because I can talk people off that ledge, right? So if they feel like things are getting out of control, and I think I had this conversation probably one day last week, is that, they were concerned about the markets. And I had to remind people, look, the portfolios that we manage for you, everything that we've got put into place, it's not the same as those 3 indexes you see on TV all the time. And I try to illustrate exactly, look, we have some of the positions in those 3 indexes, but we don't own those 3 indexes all. That's not 100% of what you have. And that just gives them some peace of mind. And I think the other part of that, Jen, is having a plan, right? Having that written retirement income plan that you can bring that focus back to and say, look, we're still on track. Remember, we talked about that your income's good. We haven't risked anything over here on the income side, and the ups and downs in the market are only over here, and here's how it's impacted you. And just bringing them back to think about the conversations that we've had in the past helps them be a little bit more grounded in what's happening today in the marketplace. So as we look at, Jen, where we're at and what people are doing, I think that again it boils down to having a plan in place. And so often I just don't see that. I don't see the majority of folks out there have a actual retirement income plan written down, where they know exactly where the money's coming from each and every year. So, hey, folks, if you don't have one, if you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, give me a call. Let's sit down and walk through the process of finding out what needs to happen for you to have a retirement income plan. That number to get started is 863-285-3815. It's 863-285-3815 or statlerfinancial.com, where we have a link to our calendar.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. I'm Jen Rezac alongside. Let me give you that number again, 863-285-3815, talking today about how our behavior has an impact on our finances, or could, depending on how we act. Now, Philip, the fear of missing out is another common behavioral trap we can fall into. And as a mom, I see this with my kids. They're always worried that they're missing out on something, but it happens with adults too. We don't want to miss out on the good things that others are experiencing. They talk about big gains that they might have, or new homes, or nice vacations. But what can happen if we are driven by that fear of missing out?
Jen, that one fear, that fear of missing out, I'm going to say, of all the fears that we talk about today, that one can be the most devastating. It can hurt you the most, because what do I see? I see people will call me and say, hey, let's buy, marijuana stock. Let's get Bitcoin. Let's do this. Let's do that. And when do they want to do it? They want to do it when it's at the top. They want to do it when it's sky high, and maybe it's not the right time, but they're afraid that they're missing out on those gains. They're afraid that they're missing out on something. And the truth be known, at that point in time, when they want again, they've already missed out. It may be too late, but they don't think of it that way. They want to own that name, and that can be problematic. Mm-hmm. Same thing about getting in the market, right? They see the market going crazy, and finally, they say, okay, I'm going to get in the market. Well, if they're doing it on their own, do they have a plan? What is the plan? I mean, we want to make sure that folks understand what they're getting into, and the fear of missing out is not a good reason to jump in the market.
Right.
We want to have a plan in place, and that plan will include putting some money in the market, but we want to make sure that, we're being prudent when we put together that plan, and understand, hey, that part is a longer term. We're not going to need that money for income or anything else like that.
Certainly just one of those things we want to keep in mind. I think as we've had this discussion today, all of us can probably relate at some point to some of these different behavioral traps at some point in our life, maybe not even necessarily about our money, but just in general. So, Philip, let me ask you, what are some final tips you can share on this topic that can help us keep emotions out of our decisions about money? How do we keep some of this in check?
So one thing is, the outside influences can be huge. So I'd say, stay present, stay with yourself, understand how the mind works, and understand what forces cause you to do certain things. Because I'll talk to people and they know exactly. They'll talk to me and they'll say, look, I know this is what I perceive, but I'm talking to you as my retirement coach, help me see what I'm not seeing. And so staying present, knowing when it's time to talk to your coach, and help coach you through that situation. Think about your values, right? What are your values? Are your values still in place where you are? Avoid, like the plague, making a decision based on fear. And over the last several years, we've seen fear from COVID, fear from the elections, fear. Don't let fear be the basis of your decisions. Another one, sleep on it. Hey, just don't react today. Know where you are, sleep on it, see how you feel in the morning, and then make your decision. Don't act hastily. And then this is probably a big one, Jen. We're talking about emotions, right? We're talking about being emotional about your money. So flip a switch. Apply some logic to your situation. If we can analyze and take the emotions out and look at things from a logical perspective and get rid of the emotions, then a lot of times then we can see more clearly what the situation looks like and what actions we truly need to take. And then trust yourself. Trust yourself. You know, I have had recently we've talked to folks who, you know, they've had that feeling that, hey, I think that the market's too high right now. And so after our conversation, I didn't tell them what to do, but, you know, in their circumstance, they felt like, okay, it's time to take a breather and maybe, you know, liquidate some positions because they had some nice gains, that type of thing. So trust yourself, trust your instincts going forward. So with all that said, it still boils down to having a portfolio and having a retirement coach that can get you through retirement. That's what we pride ourselves on here at Statler Financial, is taking where you are and laying out a game plan that's going to get you through retirement. Give us a call. Let us help you develop that game plan for retirement. 863-285-3815. That number one more time is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Call Philip Statler today to get started on your complimentary financial X-ray report. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. If you owe $26.5 trillion and you didn't have the money to pay it off, what would you need to do? Well, you need to make a lot more money, right? Well, now America's debt is more than $26.5 trillion, and right now taxes are at historically low levels. It doesn't take a genius to realize taxes will probably go up. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are low, or later when rates are much higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services know what to look for. Plan now. Philip can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 863-285-3815 to set up a visit with Philip Statler and Statler Financial Services. When taxes go up, will you be ready? 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Statler Financial Services may not give tax advice.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more. Philip, there are some words of wisdom that truly stand the test of time, and we want to share some of that timeless advice here on the show today because some of it can really relate to how you think about your money, how you prepare for retirement. So I have some quotes here. These are from some different people throughout our nation's and our world's history. And I want you to kind of relate this back to retirement planning or financial decisions for us, Philip. So I think we have a pretty good collection of quotes here today. Our first one comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson. I have to say, I really love this one, Philip. He wrote, "The desire of gold is not for gold. It is for the means of freedom and benefit." I love that quote. What does that tell you about how we should be thinking about our money for retirement?
That is a great quote. And, it's funny. I don't know that I've really ever seen that quote before, but it relates well with a lot of things that I do in my business. Because, one of the things we do is we do a goal setting session every year to get ready for the new year. And so we talk about what is financial freedom, right? What is it? And so this is really saying that it's not the money. It's not having that stockpile of money. It's what does that money do for you? What feeling does it give you? So for most people, having that gives them a sense of security, certainty. They know, hey, I've got this. That's more than enough to get me through retirement. So I have that certainty of knowing that that pot of gold or that portfolio is enough. I've got the freedom and I can benefit from that. And so that brings certainty to our life. And we all want certainty. There's certain things that we all want in life, and certainty is one of them. Freedom is the other, right? So we want the freedom to be able to do the things we want to do. One of the things I think that having that retirement plan in place is it gives us some freedom. And that freedom is we've got a portfolio here. We've got a retirement income plan in place. And so that gives us the freedom to spend the money that we've outlined within that plan. And that's total freedom. And retirees, especially those people that are retired, they love that ability that they've got the certainty of the income coming in, and it allows them the freedom to do what they've always wanted to do in retirement and have the retirement they always dreamed of. What more could you ask for, Jen?
Talking today with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, going through quotes from different figures throughout our history and seeing how they relate to retirement. And this is another one similar to the one we just heard from Thomas Jefferson, another one on making prudent financial decisions, but from Confucius. So a different era altogether. He said, when prosperity comes, do not use all of it. How do you make sure you have a strategy so you don't use all of it when you have prosperity? I thought that was a really interesting one.
It is a good one, and that can be difficult, right? Because if prosperity comes, you've got this great year, you hit the home run, and now I've got all this prosperity, this money. Now what do I do? And the average person is going to do what? They're going to go spend it. And so I think that it is prudent for people to put back money, right? Not just for a rainy day, but a rainy day is a good reason to put money back, but also for retirement, for other things, so that we're not going into debt down the road. Those are areas that I think that we need to use our prosperity to provide for ourselves down the road when prosperity may be gone or we may be on hard times. And so by putting away money, that will be helpful when we come up on some lean times. And so don't let prosperity get the best of you, because you and I both know we see it all the time that happens. So put some back for today so that you got it for a rainy day.
And one last one. I saved the best one for last. This one is from Teddy Roosevelt. And oh my gosh, I chuckle when I read it. If you could kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit for a month. This one just makes me laugh. And it's true, Philip. I mean, how often are we getting in our own way when it comes to making smart decisions with our money?
I'm going to say probably, maybe not all the time, but 99.9% of the time, it comes back to us, right? I mean, people will try to blame somebody else, but it started with a decision that you made at some point in time that got you where you are. And so whether that's you bought something that you shouldn't have bought and you bought it on credit, or you made an investment that sounded too good to be true. And I can give you a laundry list of folks that have done that. They've made that investment in something that sounded so good that it was really too good to be true, but they went in anyway instead of walking through the process to make sure it was a sound deal. So we see that, and so a lot of times it is us that is in the way. We're afraid to make a change. And so we stay doing the same thing over and over again. And you know what? We end up with the same result, even though we so badly want something different. Well, you've got to be willing to make changes. And you need to bounce things off of other folks that can guide you, coach you into and through retirement. And so that maybe you can kick yourself less, right? If you have somebody to bounce things off of, to walk through your scenario, then maybe you don't kick yourself so many times in the tail. You're better off. I can think of a couple folks, a couple clients I have that they're very good about calling me before they do anything. So they are bouncing stuff off of me. Does this make sense? Should I do this? And we can walk through it together and bounce things off. And it gives them a clearer picture of what they're trying to accomplish and whether or not that specific thing is the right direction for them to go. And I know that probably doesn't actually, relate to so much that saying, but it is, right? If we try to do stuff on our own, we're going to end up kicking ourselves a lot. If you got a coach to coach you through, a resource to bounce things off of, that in itself will allow you to make less mistakes, keeping you on the right track for your retirement. Hey, let's get started together today. Give me a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. I would love to be your retirement coach. Let's get started. It just takes a phone call, 863-285-3815.
You've been listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Remember that number, 863-285-3815, and be sure to tune in again next time for more insights from Philip. I'm Jen Rezac. We're glad you spent some time with us here today. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
If you have a retirement plan and would like a second opinion, call Statler Financial Services today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.